Welcome to the Toastmasters Experience. My name is Evelyn. Get inspired by today's Toastmasters Insights. Enjoy the show. And welcome to another episode of the Toastmasters Experience. I'm excited and delighted that I have Michael Said in my studio today. Welcome, Michael.
It's a pleasure to be here, Evelyn.
Yeah, thank you so much. Now we're going to start at the very beginning. What motivated you to join Toastmasters? How many clubs are you in? Big question. And how long have you been a member?
Okay, so I had heard of Toastmasters. My father did something called Rostrum, which was an Australian or British version. And I did that. I attended. I'd never joined or anything. And it was in 1999 where a colleague was doing Speechcraft. He tried to do Speechcraft about 3 years ago, was that scared, drove to the venue and drove straight home. So he wanted me to come with him in the course starting in January 2000 to make sure he didn't go home. So we did the course. It was during the busiest time of my working life. I worked on a project. I was 65 days straight, and my only reprieve was finishing early to go to Speechcraft. Did Speechcraft. It finished in March. And then he joined the club. I didn't. And he got me to visit a few times. And after visiting, I had no plans to join. And then one of the members said, "Michael, why don't you join?" And I said, okay. And it was one of those lessons that I tell other people, that you have to ask people to join, because I did not even think of joining, didn't want to join. I didn't need it, I felt. So you have to ask people to join. That was a lesson that I learned. So that's what I did. And that was in September 2000. So I've been a member 24 years. At my peak, I was in, this might blow up your machine. I was in 16 clubs.
At the same time?
At the same time. Two of them were ones I joined early on, and I didn't leave them. I just kept them because they were sort of nostalgic. And you used to get a magazine in those days, and they'd mucked up their addressing. So I used to get one parcel with one label on it, one with another. And I got onto World Headquarters to put them all under the one envelope, which was a mistake, because when the one big envelope turned up, my wife said, "Michael, 16 clubs," because with the little ones she never realised.
Yeah.
So anyway, I have rationalised down to 7. Of those 7, there's 2 I'm not going to, and I'll most probably maybe leave them. But again, I feel I've been a part of them for a long time. And so there's 5 I go to. There's most probably 2 that I really enjoy, and the other 3 are okay, and I attend more out of loyalty.
Oh, that's fantastic. So, wow, I don't even know how you can manage 16, 7.
Well,
go
with
ahead.
That 14,
Yeah.
I was attending them regularly.
Wow.
So like there'd be my days off in the month. I might have had 2 Fridays a month off, 1 Wednesday, and 1 Monday. So it was pretty full on.
And working full time as well?
Yep.
Wow.
Well. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So you are a proud Toastmaster.
Correct. Yeah, very much so.
Very, very proud Toastmaster. Well, which clubs are you? Well, I guess, you know what? You can't really mention. You're in 7 clubs.
I'm
yes,
happy
go. Yeah,
if
go
you
ahead.
don't mind.
Yeah, please.
So my first club, and the one I'm so proud of, is Parramatta. I love that club. It's such a prestigious club that's done just about everything. I'm a member of Stage Time, which you are too, and I really enjoy that. I was a charter member of that club. I'm in 3 dinner clubs. One's called Western Gourmet, one's called Travelling Gourmet, which I started that one, and another one's called Just for Laughs, a humour club. And originally about Just for Laughs, the president used to start every meeting by saying this. He used to say, "The rules that apply to a regular Toastmaster club don't apply to this club." And everyone would cheer, And then I'm into a club that supports one of the prison clubs called Corrective Speaking. And I'm in one that I helped, Mark Walker started, called Enhance. And that we started that specifically so that the overall organisation called District would achieve an award. We need to get one more club, and Mark did that in 2 days.
Yeah,
and tonight is its 100th anniversary. 100th meeting.
100th meeting
tonight.
Wow.
So I think that's 7. Often when I relate, I miss one, which tells me maybe that's the one club I should drop if I can't remember it. But
I'm sure whoever's listening and is in that club that you've dropped, they're thinking, oh no.
Dear.
Oh, well. So what has been the most, I guess, challenging aspect of being a Toastmasters of that many clubs?
the thing I had to learn very early is I can't make every club or try to make every club like Parramatta because they were different. And you try to bring that culture or anything, you quickly get shown the door. So you have to work with other clubs. And that challenge is one club that does it to a standard, you're then working with other clubs that do it in a very maybe sloppy way, for want of another word. That was something that was hard to get used to. And it wouldn't have worked. If I tried to put that culture on there, it would have broken down. So you have to go with the flow, with the culture of that club.
Now, I also know that you enjoy leadership positions. So can you let me know, when was the first time you became an executive, when you first joined?
I joined, and after maybe 1 month, the sergeant-at-arms left and they asked me to do the job. And I said I would. And they actually got me to do it again the next year. I think I did such a bad job. But again, this club is steeped in history, and they used to have like a small cricket bag that had the banner and everything else in it. And one day, our venue, you had to go into a lift. I left the bag in the lift, and it was in the lift for 2 days going up and down. And I had this nightmare that I had to repay what was lost in the bag, and it was about $10,000 worth of stuff. And I woke up thinking, oh my God, what have I done? So that's just a side thing. But so I started there with Sergeant-at-Arms, which I did at Parramatta for 1.5 years.
1.5 years. So that is a club executive position. When did you decide to do a higher role?
Yeah. So I think it was 2004 or 5, I became area director. And at the same time I did that, I went to my first convention, which was in Toronto, Canada. And I got addicted to going to the international convention. And before COVID, I went to every one since. I'd been to 15 straight, and I just loved that too. And that got me, so I got to see leaders on the world scale and contest winners, a whole lot of that as well. And that merged in, and it sort of dovetailed into my leadership journey within where I was in New South Wales.
So you've been to that many conventions, because my first convention was in Los Angeles. Is there a convention that really stands out as being just amazing?
The one in Malaysia was special, but I had a job. I don't know how I got it, but I know how I got it, and I'll tell you if you've got time. Every club gets 2 votes at this convention. And in the old days, every club president was posted a ballot, which they had to sign and send off. And I had 3 votes. And when I went to the convention, my good friend, but a little bit hot-headed, a hot-headed Italian called Nick said to me, Michael, where are your 3 votes? And I said, Nick, they're on my desk at home. Of course, he got a little bit excited. And to placate him, the only thing I could do was, and he was going to have the top job next year, I said, Nick, next year I'll chase the proxies for you from every club if you stop giving me a hard time. And he agreed. And I've had that job ever since. And one time, our district was one of the biggest in the world. We had 301 clubs. And this is my most memorable moment at convention, my proudest moment. And I'd got every club proxy submitted with like a month to go. I was so proud of myself.
Wow.
And yet they put in the papers for a new club. And I said to someone, why'd you do that? There's going to be another proxy I'd have to chase. And she said, don't worry, Michael, it takes them so long to put it in, you'll be fine. Well, on the last day of the shut-off to collect the proxies over in America, because you had to actually deposit them to actually then get your votes, they were launching a new dashboard, and we were playing with it, and me and my wife were there, and they said, punch in your district number. And when we punched in the district number, it popped up with 302 clubs. That extra club had gone in.
Wow.
And my wife said she'd never seen, I went green. And I left immediately, and I looked at the clock, I had like 3 hours to get this one proxy. It's a new club, so the guy didn't know what I was talking about. So I interrupted the district governor at the time, who was Nick's wife, and she was very cranky that I interrupted her, but I said, you've got to give me the detail of this club. I need it. I got it. I rang the guy. There was no answer. I realised there was no answer because it was 4:30 in the morning. But he rang me back at 6.
Okay.
And I got onto him, and because he was new in those days, sometimes when you logged in for the first time, remember, he'd never done it before, things jammed. And so I went into the office and I said, they tried to fob me off. They said, just reset the password. I said, no, that's not working. You've got to help this guy. I said, I'm not leaving until you fix it. And the lady was fuming. She had so much other stuff to do, but I wouldn't budge. And she spent half an hour hitting the keyboards. And then she said, right, it's done. Now you have to wait 20 minutes for it to reset. There's nothing I can do. She'll basically say, now you have to wait.
Right.
Well, I got that last proxy with 5 minutes to spare.
Oh, fantastic.
And it's a world record. No one's ever got close to that number.
Wow.
302. I was really proud of it. But then word got round that I'd done this, and even the world president found out. And then I got this reputation of someone who gets things done. And that, just because of that one incident, that stuck with me forever.
Because you've gone up the ranks of, like, what is the highest ranks you've gone up to?
2 years ago, I had a position called Region Advisor, which was, you'd call it the second highest position in Australia other than the person who's on the board. It covered the districts, so the districts is a group of clubs, the districts in Australia, New Zealand, and at that time we also had a group from Indonesia. So you had to look after those. And yeah.
It's all right. How do you look after those? I guess a lot of Zoom meetings, I'm assuming.
Yeah, so you schedule a monthly Zoom meeting with the leaders from all around the groups. And that's interesting because the people who are newer to that role are at one level. The people who are the seniors of that role are at a different level. And getting them all to work is interesting. And then occasionally clubs and districts have conflict or issues. And I had like three or four of those to deal with. I revel in that sort of thing. Some people don't like it. I revel in it. But a lot of it is like it's complaints, conflict, people being disqualified, a lot of serious things. And you've got to make sure there's processes in place to follow. You've got to make sure they know what it is and you help them out.
How did Toastmasters do it before Zoom? I mean, how would you be an international director? And
I can explain that because I know someone now who's on the board and that person has Zoom calls 2 to 3 times a week, whereas one of our elder members at Parramatta was on the board in the late 80s. And it was the odd phone call, but you'd twice a year get together and they'd spend 3 days in a locked room doing things. So that's how they did business. It was even pre-fax, or there may have been faxes around at the time, but it was very slow. But the whole world was slow. And so you didn't think it was slow because that was just normal pace.
That was just the way it was.
That's just the way it was. But now I'd say that people work maybe, people may not like this, but 10 times harder now with the volume of work that happens and the capability of using Zoom and other media to make it happen. You know, they get your brain's working at capacity, you know.
Yeah. So you think it's definitely harder to do the role now than it was back then? Or
look, and they would have thought it was tough back then too. It's all relative and you just adjust to it.
Yeah.
And the people who do the role love doing the role. When I was regional advisor, I loved every minute of it. When it finished, I wanted it to continue. It's hard work, but in my mind, it's good work.
And it's rewarding.
Yeah, it's rewarding work. And I'm not saying it's easy, and I'm not saying you have nothing to do, but I really enjoyed it. And I didn't want, just like when I was district director, I didn't want it to finish. I wanted to keep going.
So of all these higher roles that you have done, which one has been your favorite?
This is interesting because the first leadership role you get into outside your club is they now call it area director. And I know a lot of world presidents, and when you ask the world presidents what's the best role they've done, and they've done everything, and they've gone onto the board, and then once you get off the board, you run for the leadership. That's another 4 or 5 year journey on that. So they've done everything. They all say, every one of them says being area director because you're on the ground connected to the clubs. And I remember when I joined, we had a lady, an area governor it was called then. Her name was Diane, and I thought she was a god. She was just, and I tell her this story now and she gets all embarrassed, but I looked up to her, and that's how people look up to often the area director as being someone who's full of knowledge and really they're as green as anything. Right. You're that new and you don't realise.
Area does deal with the clubs, but the other positions, I guess you deal with the other executives.
Yeah. So the next one up from area director looks after the area directors.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And that's an interesting role because I find, not just in Toastmasters, everywhere, whenever you try to get a group of people to do something, half of them will do it, and particularly in a voluntary organisation, half of them do it the moment you ask. The next quarter will do it with a little bit of nudging, and the last quarter will do it with a hot stick sort of thing. You've got to really go to them and really help them. And that's just how it works. And the same when you manage area directors. Some are fantastic, some are okay, and some you've got to really take by the hand and do the work for them.
Now, what happens, though, when an area director position is not filled? Because that seems to be quite common.
It is now. And pre-COVID, it never happened. It never happened ever. And it's a challenge for a lot of districts around the world to find leaders. And it's a combination of things, and people now are doing other things, or they've lost interest, or there's been an issue and people think it's hard. So what happens there is the senior people in the organisation have to manage it. And one trick that division directors, the next group up, do is they get the clubs in the area to manage it themselves. They get them to form like a group and they run it. And that seems to work fairly well, but they're missing out. It's a pity that people don't put their hand up to be area director.
Yeah. So you said pre-COVID it didn't seem to be a problem. So it seems to be more of a problem now.
Yeah, it is. Now, Evelyn, can I interview you?
Yeah, sure, please.
Why don't you be area director? See, what you're saying. That's the issue. See, because people got other things to do. And a lot of people say to me, Michael got me to be area director, and he lied to me. He said it was. I never say it's no work.
Yeah.
I say it's a lot of fun. It is a bit of work, but it's enjoyable. But keep that in the recesses of your brain one day, Evelyn. One day when you give up interviewing, you think I might do it. It'll stick in your head.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. No, when I stop traveling, I will. Because I do ultimately want to get my DTM.
The mistake you've made is telling me that.
Yeah.
Because I don't forget and I'll be on your case.
No. Okay. Well, that's all right. I mean, that's okay. You have to remember in a year's time.
I will. And in 5 years' time, I'll remember too.
Okay. No worries. I might edit this out.
I'll keep on repeating this throughout. Evelyn's going to be area director one day, everyone.
Okay.
If you could see her, if we're on TV, you've got this blush lady not knowing what to say.
Oh, God. Anyways, let's go on to the next question.
Okay.
So what is your next project now within Toastmasters?
I don't want to go any higher in the organisation. I think I'm at my limit. I've seen how, I'll be honest, I don't think my brain is smart enough and fast enough to match it with those people. But I'm willing to support people that do. And I want to really get my teeth into my local club to make sure that they have a legacy, which they have already, but a better legacy to live on and have things in place to make them be the club that they should be. And in saying that, that club, like other clubs, we've lost so many leaders in that club. And at some point, or several times, I've been the only senior Toastmaster there. It's quite rare that I've been the only past president in the club. And 10 years ago, we would have 15 past presidents at any meeting ever. And so there's been a real drain on resources. So I want to accommodate that by putting processes in place to make sure that they can cope without anyone being there.
Maybe. I find a lot of clubs go through that. They don't have processes involved, to continue on the legacy of that particular club. Now, what is something in Toastmasters that has totally surprised you?
Look, there has been a few. One interesting job that I did, we had a district governor who decided to bring out world champions, and I got the job of driving them around. So for 4 years, I'd have these world champions come out, and I would be the person that would take them to Newcastle, to Canberra. A lot of them are emotionally scarred from my driving, and they still mention it now, how they survived. But I got a real insight in them. But what this district governor did, and he doesn't get credit for it, he actually changed how we go in the national speech contest, because this influx of these 4 people at that short period of time changed how our people prepare and present for contests. Okay. And it upped the standard, and that was something that was quite remarkable. I didn't know that would happen, and I was just happy to be part of it on the ground. So much so that when we're overseas, one of these past champions, he'd want to have dinner with me, and other people would be wanting to catch up with him, but he wants to have dinner with me and Linda. He wanted to have us together, because I just got on so well with him. But it was just a remarkable thing that happened.
Wow. So that was, can you mention the 4 champions?
Yeah, I can. There was David Brown, who he won the world championship in a pair of jeans.
Oh my gosh, good. Wow.
Darren LaCroix, Randy Harvey, and Lance Miller.
Lance Miller, okay.
Lance Miller. And each one of them had a niche thing that they did.
I remember that. So, I remember that time, because I remember Lance Miller, and then we had Katani, Muhammad Katani?
Muhammad Katani, yeah.
Muhammad Katani came out as well.
And I got to take him to the airport, so I got to know him very well too.
Oh, yeah, wow. So who was this executive person who had this idea? Can you give him credit now?
His name was Ian Chick. He's no longer in Toastmasters. Ian was an interesting guy. He was a salesman at heart. If he didn't know it, he'd just go with it, and you'd convincing. He could sell ice to Eskimos. He really could. And it was really visionary of him to do what he did. And he was the sole person behind making that happen.
And he's no longer with Toastmasters.
No, I still talk to him every 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah. I mean, that happens. Some people just go on to different things, and even if they've been a long-term member. Is there anything besides Toastmasters that you read, listen to improve your public speaking or your leadership skills?
One thing happened to me. It was after I was in Toastmasters for about 10 years. I made a decision, and it came by mistake. The program person, the VPE, put me down to do a role. And I said to him, "You didn't give me any notice." And he corrected me and said, "No, Michael, you told me that you'll do anything." And I said, "You're right, I did say that." So then I said, "Right, here and now, I'll do any role at any notice, no matter what it is. I'm not going to say no to any public speaking opportunity." And that one decision put me in a bind so many times. There was one time a friend at work was getting married at the Opera House. And he wanted an MC, and I knew someone. I asked him, the guy said, "I can't do it. I'm busy that weekend." And then he said, the next words he said was something that I dreaded. He said, "Michael, why don't you do it?"
Oh, God.
No, I'd never emceed a wedding ever, let alone at the Opera House. Well, I did it. It went down a treat. People came up to me and said, "I thought you worked for the Opera House." I said, "No, I'm just a friend of the guy getting married." I never forget the sound person said, "These things always go over time."
Yeah.
So, no, we won't go over time. "I know, they all go over time." I said, we're not going over time. And at 11:15 on the dot, the bride and groom walked out.
Wow.
And I was so proud of myself. But I got that from the learning in Toastmasters of running events and contests. What it taught me was just to back yourself. And I tell people now, they say, "I don't know what I'm doing. And why should I do the role?" I say to them, "You're qualified. That's what we're looking for. As long as you don't know, you have a willingness to learn, you're perfect."
I do know that about you, Michael, is you say yes to everything, which is fantastic. And people can count on you. And being a member for 24 years, you are someone that everybody does look up to.
Look,
so
when I was asked, they wanted to get someone to talk on 2GB at 2 a.m. in the studio, and this guy said, "Get Michael. He could get a poll to join Toastmasters."
Yes.
And I tell you, as I was standing outside the studio waiting to go in, I was willing for there to be a power blackout. I was that nervous, and I'd been in Toastmasters 15 or 16 years. I was that scared. When I did it, I loved it, and I didn't want it to finish.
Yeah.
And so much so, I finished at 3 a.m. The tech guy came on next, and he was still talking about me. It was so funny.
Wow.
I'm listening. He said, "Listen, on your way home, I'm going to talk about you." And he said something like, "Isn't it fantastic that a guy's surname lives into his hobby?"
Yes.
Public speaking.
Yes,
you know?
yes. I didn't even think about that. Yeah. Is it actually said, or is it,
It's a Maltese name. It's
Okay.
also a Lebanese name, but it's a Maltese name. And the Maltese pronounce it side, like you'd say S-I-D-E. And we've just Australianised it to said, and most Maltese people say said. We couldn't fight it. So and it said it is. I don't say anything else.
Yeah. Oh, actually, it's fantastic, isn't it? I didn't even think about that. What has Toastmasters done for your personal life?
Oh, man. It's opened up doors that I wouldn't even known were doors because I've not said no to anything. Up until about 7 years ago, I had not done a single eulogy. I've now done 6.
Wow.
And I was telling someone on the way here, I used to be on a board of a credit union, and one of the guys on that board was the smartest brain I ever knew. His brain and my brain weren't in the same stratosphere, And yet when he passed away, his wife asked me to do the eulogy. I was so touched that there were so many people smarter than me that could have done it, but she asked me. When Dad died, I did it. My eulogy went for 13 minutes, and my youngest sister, she spoke for about 6, telling stories of Dad. Dad used to write to her when she was overseas, and she was telling those stories. And remember, I went 13 minutes, she went 6. At the end of it, Mum came up to me and said, "Michael, you were fantastic, but Lynette went so long."
Isn't that interesting? It's so interesting.
And she didn't go long at all. But
but you were engaging, and that's
it was
what
just
that's
lots
what
of
matters.
stories rolling on.
Yeah.
One of the tricks I learned from the world champions was to make your stories like a slinky, so every run rolls into the other. And that was a trick I used in that 13 minutes. That I didn't lose my spot because every story was a segue into the next one. And that's why I delivered something so long without a single slip up or referring to notes or anything.
Yeah, and it helps you remember too when you segue like that as well.
That's the key thing.
Yeah. And obviously, what has it done for your professional life?
Look, I was on the board of this credit union for 26 years. I'd been asked to be the chairman sometime before, and I just didn't have the confidence to do it. And yet after joining Toastmasters and my club at Parramatta, we're big on running meetings, and I had that experience behind me. When they asked me again, I said yes. And it meant there was an election, but I won fairly well. It then exposed me to things I had no idea I was going to be exposed to. Within 2 weeks of being chairman, we had APRA, the regulator, came to see us, and I had to front them.
Oh, wow.
And that was daunting. 6 months into my term as chairman of the board, we got robbed. And I was the first person into that room after that robbery happened. And I swore the look I saw on those girls' faces was something I never wanted to see ever again. It was chilling. Wow. And I remember I had to present at the AGM not long after that robbery. And part of our membership was members of a fairly serious trade union. And they loved those girls in the credit union. And I thought I could get assassinated here. And I gave a Toastmaster speech. And at the end of it, I said, does anyone have any questions? And there wasn't one. I was just so proud of that because I was just raw and honest. The love that everyone has for those staff in the credit union was just unbelievable. That's something that I wouldn't have even considered doing if it hadn't been for Toastmasters.
What are just your thoughts about AI?
Well, I reckon AI should talk to me because I reckon... But in saying that... Look, I know so many people that use AI. They write a letter, then they run through AI, and AI comes back and they make it so much better. So it's clearly got a spot. I got to MC 3 weddings in the last 2 years. My closest friend has 3 children. I MC'd their 3 weddings. And at one of those weddings, a guy said to me, I got really embarrassed the other day because I'm going to 2 weddings in a row. It's the same group of people. I'm the best man at the second wedding. And when I went to the first wedding, the best man gave my speech. It was identical, word for word, because they both put the same thing into AI.
How funny.
And he said, so I don't think AI will ever capture the personal things. It might say it nicer and sweeter, but it'll never know the stories and the funny little nuances that are in your brain. It can never take them out.
That's right.
Now,
That's right.
It's going to get smarter and cleverer, and it's going to be able to do things that you can't even imagine.
Right.
But I can't see it ever being able to capture those stories and tell them in a way that you can tell them, that capture people's hearts and minds.
Exactly, and connect in that way as well.
One of the guys at my club at Parramatta gave a speech where he had his phone and he was having a conversation with AI in the speech, and he's asking questions. He's asking it to do something, then he interrupted and he'd ask it to do it in another accent. He'd ask it to do it differently. He'd ask it to do it in an angry tone. And it was like he was talking to his phone and it was talking back. It was fascinating. And I can see a benefit where people who are, say, lonely have like an AI bot in their house that says, "Good morning, Evelyn. Have you taken your tablets today?
Yeah.
That was a really good meal you cooked last night. I hope you're enjoying it. Are you looking forward to watching Days of Our Lives soon?" It could really find a spot just like that. And that's one of millions of good things that can do.
Yeah. No, that's true. I do feel it does enhance, our speech writing now and enhance other things as well. So what are some other interesting things that you've done within Toastmasters?
Based on the fact that I made that decision to say yes to every opportunity, I once got a phone call from an organisation and they said, "We need someone to come to our place tomorrow and deliver a 20-minute speech." And I said, "Well, I don't have time to arrange it." And then I thought about what I said. I said, "I'll do it." Now, up to that point in time, the longest speech I'd ever done was 7 minutes, maybe 7:30 at a stretch. I had no idea what I was going to do. So I turned up. It was the Deaf Society. I turned up, and when I was in the lift, I said hello to this person, and the person didn't answer me. I thought, how rude is that? Anyway, I'll put that aside. I turned up and they said, "You don't know why you're here, are you? Do you?" I said, "No idea." They said, "We are now doing a test for our people with sign language, and we want you to do a 20-minute speech, and we're testing 3 students. To your right will be the person who's signing. Across from them will be the person who helps them when they're stuck with a word. They'll sign what the word should be to them. And the third person is the timer. And those 3 people will rotate every 6 or 7 minutes. So that's why you've got to go for 20 minutes. I said, okay, so I can do that. And they asked me what I was going to talk about, and I was just going to roll 3 speeches together. But halfway through, my wicked brain said to me, "I'm going to destroy this session. I'm going to make them laugh so much that they had to stop. And I'm telling one of my funny speeches, and honestly, the three plus the marker, they had to put everything down. They just burst out laughing. They couldn't contain themselves. And it really did muck that up. But then she said to me, so what's happening in the room next door is the reverse. We have a signer, and then people are having to talk and say what he's signing. The person who I saw in the lift was the signer in the other room. He didn't say hello to me because he couldn't hear me. Okay. And I thought, you silly man, don't judge a book by its cover.
Yeah.
You know? But that wouldn't have happened. That whole thing wouldn't have happened if I hadn't made that decision to say yes to everything, because I could have easily said, no, I can't help you.
So this decision to say yes, how long ago did that happen?
That happened in about 2010.
2010.
And since then it's had me give eulogies. It's had me talk on the radio, do that 20-minute job.
Yeah.
Just anything that comes up. You know, I used to get asked at work. I worked for a large multinational company, but I got asked to give the farewells. And I once did a farewell for this person, and my boss spoke after me, and he can't talk, and I really embarrassed him just by doing a good job.
Yeah.
Well, I was interstate, and that same boss invited me to someone's farewell. And I thought, I bet she's going to ask me at last minute to do a speech and give me no notice so he could do a better job than me. So I prepared, and I had to drive to this venue, and with 2 minutes before the speech started, he said, do you want to do a speech? I said, okay. And of course, I smashed it.
Okay.
And he came up to me and he swore. I won't say what he said because you have to beep it out. But he said, you've done it to me again. I said, what did I do? I just gave a speech. Yeah, but so it's about preparing and being ready.
So how do you prepare though?
I tell myself, and I've told this at my club, I say, I will do any role you want with zero notice. And I'm just automatically ready. And I just know this is what I do. I was at one of my more embarrassing moments when I was district director. I'm not telling people to do this, but this is what happened to me. I turned up at an event and I made the cardinal sin of a Toastmaster, which is not to read the agenda all the way through. And I'm sitting down, and at the first part of the meeting, I had to present an award, and I did that. And I'm sitting down in the second half, and I'm just relaxing. And then the chairman says, our next speaker is Michael Said. And I thought, oh, boy, that's me. And he's going to talk about, I thought, well, I better listen to know what I'm going to talk about. And I stood up, and I remembered, oh, yes, I did agree to do that, didn't I? I stood up, I did up my coat jacket, and when I'm walking to the front, I had this conversation with myself. I said, brain, you better think of something because I got nothing. And I didn't know what I was going to say, but I just backed myself and I said stuff. And they're going, geez, that was fantastic. I don't know what it was. So my trick is, in a very short period of time, think of what 3 stories to talk about. One of the first world champion I brought out to Australia, that was his mantra. Tell a story, make a point. Tell a story, make a point. And I thought, what 3 stories am I going to say? I got them, and one was about someone in the room, so it had relatedness there. So I did that, and it linked it all together, and that was my 6 or 7 minutes. And,
wow.
But the trick is, I never told anyone I was not prepared. No one knows. I don't even tell them the event. And I could have started off by saying, guys, I'm really sorry. I had forgotten I was doing this, and I'll put something, and it would have just been a real dampener on it. Yeah. So the trick is never admit that you're not ready. Don't make it practice. Be ready. If you're not ready, go with it and never tell anyone afterwards you weren't ready.
Yeah, that's so true.
And behave like you're ready and deliver it like you're prepared.
Yeah. Because people don't see your nervousness.
No, they don't.
Yeah, they don't see it at all.
But I've told myself I have to do that. Because I've said I have to do that, I do it. Whereas if I said I'm going to apologise, I'd be sloppier and I wouldn't be at that level. So I force myself to do it. And I don't teach people to be like this because it's not the right way. You should be prepared. But if anything comes up at short notice,
you'll say yes.
I'm up for it. Yeah. And I always have a pathway manual ready. I've got a speech up and ready to go. So if I turn up anyone and say we need a speaker, I don't want to take spots. I don't need to speak at all. But if they have a spot, I'll do it.
What does communication mean to you?
It's what we do to survive. You know, everything we do is about relating to someone. And an interesting thing we did in Toastmasters, my wife and I, we were in Portugal and we looked up a Toastmaster club and we went there. And when we turned up, they said they have one meeting in English, one in Portuguese. We happened to turn up on the Portuguese night. And we said, okay. And every person gets given an evaluation sheet at this club. So you give the speaker a full list of things to do. And we listened to the speeches. And I wrote out the evaluation sheet for every speaker. and I had no idea what they were talking about. But it forced me to look for other things I wouldn't have normally looked at.
Yeah.
So one guy had the audience laughing, and I could just tell he was connecting with them. Another guy was telling something. He must have been telling some accounting standard or something, because it was so boring that people were looking around the room, not paying attention. So I was able to collect so many other things, and I gave a very comprehensive evaluation to each person because we were communicating, not using words. I couldn't understand a thing. So communication is all things. It's not just that, It's being able to listen and receive and just your facial expression, everything.
Exactly.
It's the whole gambit is communication. It's everything.
Yeah. So that's interesting that you actually gave an evaluation. Now, I usually go to clubs when I travel. I've been to clubs in Glasgow, Edinburgh, London, and different states. Have you found like an amazing venue somewhere that you've traveled around the world, or like an amazing club that just sticks out?
Look, nothing comes to mind. We have run demonstration meetings, and we ran one in town at a venue that overlooked the harbour. Wow. And you could see the harbour, and you thought you'd work here for free. Yeah. It was just a gorgeous place. But as you say that, I was in Malaysia, and I went to a club in Malaysia. This is not related to your question, but it's something they did that I found strange. Oh. Do you know you have an Amar counter?
Yeah.
Well, they had that, but their Amar counter had a little bell, a little dinger bell. Oh. So every time you it went ding, and you again, and then you'd be nervous, so you'd again, you go ding, and
I actually liked that.
Well, you liked it. It didn't make it better. It made it worse.
Oh, okay.
Because the person was getting anxious because they were hearing the dings, and then they kept on because they were and they were getting more. I found it in your face and really off-putting. Wow. But that was just what they did there. I did go to a Toastmaster club, and I've been there a few times now, inside a maximum security prison. And if I was to say what was a rewarding thing, that experience is something I'll never forget. And the first thing that hit me, and it stuck with me since, is that I've never been more respected at a Toastmaster club than when I was in that room. These guys would make sure you had a seat and whatever. There was food on. They wouldn't go up to take the food until everyone else had food. And these are guys that had done some seriously bad stuff, but they wanted to improve themselves, and I was so moved by it. And sometimes you hear a speech and it almost brings you to tears. I can never forget that, and I felt totally safe. I didn't feel like I was in a maximum security prison. I thought these guys were just ordinary guys, and they're just. I remember one guy said, and I'll never forget what he said to me. He said to me, "I just made one stupid mistake," and I just really felt for those people, bearing in mind they've done something to get there. I went there. Last time I went there was March this year. It was my birthday.
We went together.
We were there.
Yeah, we were there together.
And I was driving out there, and of course my mother, who's 95, rang me to say it was my for my birthday. And she said, "What are you doing today?" I said, "I'm off to jail." And at 95, she came back immediately with, "What have you done?" So here's my 95-year-old mother expecting me to be in jail. But when I turned up at that jail, the inmates found out it was my birthday, and they had made a shield of my football team, St George, embossed the logo out of timber and presented it to me. And the president had tried to lacquer it, and the lacquer didn't work, so he had to remove it with his finger. And he wore the skin off his finger, removing that lacquer off my shield. He said it took him half a day to do, so I could get this thing that looked unbelievably perfect. I was so moved that they would do that. There was no need to do that. I didn't expect it. It's an experience that I can never get out of my head.
Yeah, so that probably would be one of your highlights, I guess,
Clearly,
of experiences that you've had.
And having a mother who thinks I should be in jail.
Yes, that's right.
She has due cause to think that, by the way.
Okay. Is there anything that has happened at one of the conventions that you are really proud of?
Look, one of the things that happens at each convention is they elect the officers to stand on the board and go up to leadership to end up becoming international president. And this convention just gone in August in Anaheim, one of our Toastmaster friends was running for the board, and we were part of her campaign team. We put in hours and hours of doing work and research, and she got elected.
Wow!
And had to endure a whole lot of hardship and other things to get there, and every hurdle she jumped through and got elected. And you got a lot of proud moments in Toastmasters. I would put that as one of my proudest moments, is being part of the team that helped get her elected to the board.
Yeah.
It's something I'll just never forget. And the exhilaration and joy. I was lucky. I was the scrutineer. So as scrutineer, all you get to see, you don't get to see anything other than a screen with the numbers flash up, because it's all done electronically all around the world. There's maybe 22,000 votes cast. And I remember seeing the number pop up, and I had to ask the operator, is that the final number, or are the votes still coming in? Because it happened that quickly. My brain couldn't compute whether it's half the number or not.
Yeah.
And to see that number and know that she got elected, and we had to poke her face, we couldn't give anything away. There was someone standing in front of us watching us, so we didn't give any signal. And we had to stand there for like 2 or 3 minutes until they got everything certain that it was right, and then they announced the result. So being the first person to see it was unbelievable as well.
Yeah.
But a moment I'll never ever forget was getting that lady,
getting her elected.
getting her
Yeah.
successfully elected.
And you've been friends for many years, haven't you? So
I was at the club when she turned up for the first time.
Wow.
And I just saw the progression. And she's someone who learns very quickly.
Yeah.
She takes things on and just pushes herself. And
and she says yes all the time too.
Yeah, and sometimes she regrets saying yes, but but no, really, really good, and she'll do a great job in that role.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely fantastic. It's been such a pleasure having you here today in the studio. I'm just so grateful, but I'm going to ask you one last question.
Certainly.
What advice would you give someone considering joining Toastmasters?
That's easy.
Okay.
So my answer would be, stop considering, stop thinking about it, because you're never going to get to the right decision. You're never going to be ready. Just immediately join.
Yeah.
Do it without thought. I tell people I've never seen anyone die giving a speech. But if they did die, imagine how good the eulogy will be. Yeah. And that's why I say to them, I acknowledge that you are going to be nervous and scared initially, but that will disappear. It's the one thing that you can't put a tablet under your tongue or watch a TED talk and be good at it. You have to actually do it in front of a group of people that you may not know. And doing it over and over and over, it gets you settled. So stop thinking about it, just do it. And don't just do it for you, do it for other people, and get your friends to come along and get them to join, because you're giving everyone a gift. Always make sure that you keep on getting people coming along, because we're an organisation, we're a breathing thing. We need to, our food is our people. We need to get people coming through, because people come and go. We need to survive by getting new people in, and they're out there. Every year we put 100,000 18-year-olds into the marketplace. They spend all their time moving their thumbs on their phone. They need this more than ever. So just join and get others to join, and do it quickly.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely agree with you. So thank you again. It's been such a pleasure having you in the studio today.
Thank you, Evelyn. I've loved every minute of it.
Thank you so much for your company. Please tune in next time to the Toastmasters Experience.